The valley of Emberdeep was known across the region as a place no human dared to cross. Sharp cliffs rose like walls of fire-red stone, and giant shadows of huge flying creatures moved across the sky at dawn and dusk. Those who lived in cities far away spoke of these creatures with fear. They called them dragons, ancient beasts of flame and scale, powerful enough to crush mountains and burn forests. People believed dragons hated humans, but humans had never actually tried to understand them. So the valley stayed untouched and unexplored. One man, however, never feared the unknown. His name was Elias, a wanderer with a curious heart and a stubborn mind. He traveled to forgotten places, collected stories, and studied rare life forms. To him, unknown creatures were not threats, they were mysteries waiting to be understood. That was why he found himself standing at the edge of Emberdeep Valley one early morning, staring at the shimmering lake that rested peacefully between the cliffs. The lake was known as Moonwater Lake. Its surface always reflected light sun or moon like silver glass. Elias had come to study the stones near the water, because the rocks here glowed faintly at night due to natural minerals. But when he arrived, he felt something was wrong. The air felt heavy, trembling as if carrying a hidden message. A deep roar echoed across the valley, so loud that Elias's bones vibrated. He flinched and looked up. A massive blue dragon soared above the lake, followed by two more dragons, one emerald green, one deep crimson. Their wings cut through the wind like sails of thunder. Elias froze where he stood. He had seen dragons before, but always from far distances, and always alone. Seeing three dragons at once, circling the same place with frustrated cries, was completely new. At first he thought they might attack each other, but soon he realized something else. Their movements were frantic, not aggressive. Their roars were shaking, not violent. The blue dragon dove toward the lake, splashing huge waves upward, then lifted its head and let out a sound Elias had never heard before. It was not anger. It was sorrow. Elias watched them closely, hiding behind a large stone near the shore. The dragons kept circling and diving, as if searching for something. Then Elias noticed something unusual. Small ripples appeared in one section of the lake, where the sunlight did not reach well. The area looked deeper, darker, as though something had collapsed there. Suddenly, everything made sense. A storm had passed last night, shaking the valley violently. Elias remembered hearing thunder and feeling the ground move. If a section of cliff had broken off and fallen into the lake, it could have created deep underwater tunnels. If something or someone fell into them, it would be impossible for large creatures like dragons to enter. Elias peeked again and saw the sapphire blue dragon press its snout against the water. Its shoulders trembled. Elias felt a painful twist in his chest. Dragons were feared for being ferocious. But seeing one shake with despair made him realize how little humans truly knew them. He whispered to himself, "They're young. They must be missing." He had heard stories. Every few years, dragons laid eggs near the warm rocks by the lake. When the young dragons hatched, they stayed near the shallow parts of the water until they grew stronger. If the storm had knocked them into the deeper area, Elias swallowed hard. He had never rescued a dragon in his life. He had saved small forest creatures, birds with broken wings, and once even a lost cave wolf pup. But dragonlings, that was a whole new level of danger. Yet when he looked at the dragons again, hearing their cries, seeing their grief, something in him moved. He stepped forward. The dragons noticed him instantly. Three massive heads turned his way. Their golden eyes narrowed. Elias raised both hands slowly, to show he had no weapon. "I want to help," he said softly, knowing they couldn't understand the words, but hoping they understood the tone. "I know why you're crying. Your young ones. They're down there. Right?" The blue dragon landed heavily on the ground, shaking dust into the air. Its wings folded close to its body, and it lowered its head until its enormous eye met Elias's. The dragon's hot breath washed over him, smelling faintly of smoke and the lake's minerals. Elias's heart pounded, but he didn't step back. He pointed at the dark section of the water. "I can go in. I'm small. I can fit," where you can't." The dragon stared deeply at him. Elias felt something unexplainable, a silent link, a moment of shared understanding. The dragon blinked slowly, then stepped back. Elias took a deep breath. He removed his jacket, boots, and anything heavy that might slow him down. He tied a glowing mineral stone collected from the valley to the front of his shirt so he would have light underwater. The lake water looked colder than snow, but he didn't hesitate. He walked in. The cold hit him like a punch to the chest. He gasped but kept moving. Soon the water was up to his waist, then his chest, then his shoulders. The dragons watched with tense eyes, their bodies coiled tightly like springs. Elias inhaled deeply, whispered, "Please let me find them," and dove beneath the surface. Everything turned silent. The water felt thick, pressing against his ears. The light from the glowing stone cut through the darkness in a narrow beam. Elias kicked toward the deeper area, following the ripples he saw earlier. He reached the collapsed section, where jagged rocks surrounded a narrow opening. It was barely wider than his shoulders. He squeezed inside. The rough edges scraped his arms. His breath came faster as he swam deeper into the underwater tunnel. The path twisted like a snake, and the light from his stone flickered faintly. He kept one hand on the rock wall to guide himself. Then he heard it, a thin, trembling chirp. Elias froze. He kicked forward softly, listening again. Another chirp, a little louder, then another, followed by a weak scratch against the rock. He pushed ahead with renewed strength. The tunnel widened suddenly into a small hidden cave, filled with air at the top. Elias surfaced and gasped for breath. 3 dragonlings huddled on a narrow ledge inside the cave. They were soaked, shivering, and terrified. Their tiny wings stuck to their bodies. Their scales glowed faintly, showing their fear. When they saw Elias's light, they pressed closer together, unsure if he was danger or salvation. Elias lifted his hand slowly, keeping his voice gentle. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here to take you back." One dragonling, the smallest, with bright silver scales, tilted its head and chirped weakly. It stepped forward on shaking legs and sniffed Elias's fingers. Its nose was cold and soft. Elias smiled. "There you go. See? I'm not here to hurt you." The smallest one nudged his palm as if begging him not to leave again. Elias felt his heart melt. He looked toward the underwater tunnel. It would be impossible to carry all 3 at once. He would need to make multiple trips. That meant risking getting stuck, losing breath, or worse. But he pushed fear aside. These little ones had been alone all night. They needed him now. He scooped the smallest dragonling into his arms. It wrapped its tiny wings around his chest like a frightened child. "Okay. Hold on tight." He dove back into the tunnel, kicking as gently as he could to avoid hurting the dragonling. His lungs burned by the time he reached the lake's open area again. He surfaced with a gasp. The dragons roared from above, not in anger, but in shock and hope. The sapphire dragon rushed forward, lowering its head. Elias placed the dragonling onto its snout. The parent let out a trembling sound as the little one squeaked and nuzzled it. Elias didn't waste time. He dove again. The second trip was harder. The water felt colder. His body felt slower. But he kept going. He reached the cave again, lifted the next dragonling, and swam back, forcing himself not to panic as the tunnel walls scraped his arms. When he surfaced with the second dragonling, the green dragon let out a roar that shook the cliffs. The valley echoed with relief, but Elias still wasn't done. He dove for the final time, muscles burning, breath shortening, vision dimming. The last dragonling was the scared one. It tried to hide behind a rock, chirping in fear. Elias gently coaxed it, whispering softly until it crawled toward him. He held it close and swam back with every ounce of strength he had left. His chest ached. His lungs screamed. His fingers trembled. The moment he reached the surface, he nearly collapsed. The crimson dragon roared as the last of its young finally returned. Elias clung to a rock, gasping, shaking, but alive. The dragons stared at him, not with fear, not with anger, but with awe. In one day, One human had done what none of them could, and nothing in Emberdeep Valley would ever be the same again. Elias sat on the shore, his breath still uneven, his arms trembling from the cold, but his heart strangely warm. He watched as the dragons gathered their children close, checking them, touching them gently with giant snouts, making soft rumbling sounds that carried emotion even a human could understand. It was a scene he had never imagined seeing in his lifetime. 3 mighty dragons acting like worried, relieved parents. The crying, the searching, the roaring. It all made sense now. Their little ones were their treasure, but the dragons were not the only ones watching. More dragons arrived from across Emberdeep Valley, each one flying in swiftly when they heard the roars echoing through the cliffs. Their wings beat powerful waves of wind through the valley. Soon the sky was full of dragons of every color: scarlet, gold, emerald, shadow black, and silver. The air vibrated with the sound of their calls. Elias instinctively took a step back. Being surrounded by this many dragons was extremely dangerous for any normal person. But he wasn't running or hiding. A strange feeling inside him pushed him to stay still. Something told him the dragons didn't come to attack. They came because they wanted to know what had happened. The sapphire blue dragon, the one Elias believed to be the leader, stood tall at the center of the gathering. With a deep rumble, it announced something to the other dragons. The valley trembled with the sound. The other dragons responded with roars and growls, but not aggressive ones. They sounded surprised, confused, curious. Elias realized the blue dragon was telling the story of the rescue. He watched as dragons lowered their heads toward the rescued dragonlings. Some sniffed the little ones. Some nudged them gently. All of them seemed stunned that the young had survived. Elias noticed several dragons glancing at him as well. Those glances made him nervous. Their eyes reflected sunlight like glass. Their pupils narrowed. Their nostrils flared. But their expressions were not cold. They looked at him with something strange. Respect. Gratitude. Even wonder. Elias took a shaky breath, unsure what to do. Should he bow? Should he speak? Should he simply stand there? All he managed to whisper was, "I'm just glad they're safe." The sapphire dragon approached him. It walked slowly, every step causing the earth to shake beneath his feet. When it reached him, it lowered its giant head until its face was inches from Elias. The hum of its breath washed across him. Elias froze in place, but then the dragon gently touched its forehead against Elias's chest. The touch was warm and soft, completely opposite of what he expected. It was not an attack. It was not even a warning. It was a sign of honor, a sign dragons used only for someone who had done something incredibly brave. Elias felt his breath catch in his throat. He had read little things in old traveler journals, rare notes from people who claimed to see dragons perform this gesture. It was called the heart bow, an ancient sign that meant, "You are worthy." His hands trembled as the dragon stepped back. Then something even more shocking happened. The other dragons, the entire gathering, lowered their heads as well, not fully, not like the leader, but just enough to show acknowledgement and respect. Elias felt his knees weaken. He had just been honored by a full conclave of dragons. No human in history had ever written anything about such a moment. As he stared in awe, something small suddenly climbed onto his shoulder. Elias gasped and turned slowly. It was the smallest dragonling, the silver-scaled one. It chirped happily and rubbed its little head against his cheek. Elias couldn't help but laugh softly. "Hey, you remember me, huh?" The dragonling purred and wrapped its tiny tail around his neck, as if claiming him. The moment the other dragons saw this, they reacted instantly. Several dragons lowered their heads even further. A few looked shocked. A few looked amused. The sapphire dragon released a deep, approving rumble. Elias glanced at the massive creatures around him. Is this okay?" he murmured, unsure if he was breaking some sort of ancient dragon law. The dragons did not appear angry. In fact, the sapphire leader stepped forward and very gently nudged Elias so he wouldn't fall from the little one's weight. It seemed to be encouraging the connection. The crimson dragon, the one whose child was the largest dragonling, gave Elias a long, deep look. A soft exhale of smoke drifted from its nostrils. Warm, but harmless. Elias took that as a sign of acceptance. Then something unexpected happened again. A golden dragon, tall and shimmering like sunlight, dropped something near Elias's feet. It was a stone, smooth, glowing faintly with golden light. Elias bent down and picked it up. It was warm to the touch, humming with energy. A rare crystal. Then a green dragon approached and placed a beautiful feather on the ground. Another offered a chunk of crystal. Another set down a shiny ore. They were giving him gifts. Elias swallowed hard. He had heard legends of dragons giving gifts to those they considered allies. But never had he thought he would witness it, let alone be the one receiving them. "Thank you," he whispered, overwhelmed. The dragons watched him in silence, their colorful scales glittering under the sun like jewels. The valley felt strangely alive. For the first time, Elias felt he wasn't an outsider here. He was included, accepted. The sapphire dragon stepped toward the lake, dipped its wing into the water, and made a soft rumbling call. Elias hesitated a moment before following it. The dragon walked into the shallow part of the lake and motioned with its head for Elias to join. Elias slowly entered the water until it reached his knees. The sapphire dragon lowered its head and touched the surface with its snout. The water began to glow faintly. Elias stepped closer, unsure what to expect, but trusting the dragon. Suddenly, the lake shimmered with light. Glowing lines appeared beneath the surface, swirling like ribbons of magic. Elias stared in awe. The symbols danced around his legs, forming patterns he had never seen before. They rose slowly, surrounding him, pulsing with a gentle rhythm that felt like a heartbeat. The sapphire dragon let out a low hum. The symbols reacted, spinning faster around Elias. He felt warmth spread across his chest, calming and steady. He didn't understand the symbols, but his instincts told him this wasn't dangerous. It was something ancient, something sacred. The light rose higher, circling his chest before dissolving into the air. Elias exhaled slowly. "What was that?" The dragon looked at him with soft golden eyes. Elias understood. It wasn't a mark of ownership or control. It was a mark of trust, a bond. The dragons were telling him that he was welcome in their territory, that he was under their protection. If another dragon ever tried to attack him, they would see that mark. The little dragonling on his shoulder chirped happily, almost as if saying, "You're one of us now." Elias laughed gently and scratched its chin. "I still don't know how to take care of a dragonling," he said. "But I guess I'll try my best." The dragonling purred loudly. Before Elias could say anything else, he felt a strange shift in the air. The dragons felt it too. Their heads snapped toward the northern cliffs. Some spread their wings. Some rose onto their hind legs. The sapphire dragon released a warning rumble. Elias felt the ground tremble beneath him. Something was coming. A low, distant rumble echoed through the valley. Birds scattered from nearby trees. Even the water rippled as if shaken by invisible movement. Elias stood still, his heart beating faster. The dragons had gone from calm to alert in just moments. The green dragon stepped protectively in front of the dragonlings. The crimson dragon released a puff of smoke, eyes narrowed. The golden dragon spread its wings halfway, ready to take flight. Elias whispered, "What is that?" No dragon answered with sound, but their body language spoke clearly they were afraid. The tremor grew stronger. A deep roar, a completely different one, shook the valley walls. It was not the voice of a dragon. It sounded more like something huge, dragging itself across the ground, something ancient and angry. Elias grabbed the glowing stone still tied to his shirt. The little dragonling on his shoulder tightened its grip. The sapphire dragon lowered its head near Elias, as if telling him to stay behind it. Elias nodded. Whatever was coming, it was dangerous, and it was heading straight for Emberdeep Valley. Elias stood behind the sapphire dragon, his breathing slow and tight, his eyes fixed on the northern cliffs where the trembling sounds grew louder with each passing moment. The dragons around him shifted uneasily, their bodies tense, scales bristling with ancient instinct. Even the dragonlings sensed danger. The smallest one wrapped itself closer around Elias's neck, trembling softly. The air in Emberdeep Valley thickened, filled with an electric tension that made even the wind hold still. The trembling grew into loud cracks, as if something massive was breaking through stone. Elias pressed his hand to the sapphire dragon's leg, trying to steady his own heartbeat. The dragon didn't push him away. Instead, it leaned slightly closer, as if promising silent protection. Suddenly, the cliff wall split open. Rocks exploded outward, bouncing across the valley floor. A roar, deeper than thunder and sharper than metal scraping stone, erupted from the dust. Dragons scattered into formation, wings spreading in a defensive arc. Elias shielded his eyes as dust clouded the air. When the dust settled, Elias saw it, an enormous creature dragging itself from the broken cliff. It was not a dragon. Its body was covered in thick, dark plates like stone armor. Its head was long and narrow, with glowing red eyes that burned with rage. Sharp ridges lined its back like jagged blades. It walked on 4 legs, but its movements were stiff, almost unnatural. Every step made the earth quake. Elias recognized it from an old traveler's sketch he once saw. It was called a dreadscale, a rare mountain beast believed to be extinct. It lived deep underground, bursting into open land only when extremely disturbed. The storm must have cracked its cave and awakened it. The dreadscale let out another roar, its molten red eyes sweeping across the valley and landing on the dragons. Elias swallowed hard. The dragons were powerful, but the dreadscale was built like living stone. Its armor could resist dragon fire. Its jaws could break boulders. The sapphire dragon stepped forward, wings raised high, and roared a warning that shook the trees. The other dragons echoed it, forming a protective circle around the dragonlings and around Elias. The dreadscale stomped forward, shaking off the last bits of rock. Its tail smashed into the ground, sending a shockwave across the valley. Elias stumbled, but the sapphire dragon blocked the wave, shielding him with its massive body. Elias whispered, "They can't fight this alone." But he also knew he could not fight at all, not with claws, not with fire, not with strength. He was just one human among giants. Yet his heart refused to back away. The dreadscale charged, its armored body crashing toward the dragons. The crimson dragon leapt into the air, releasing a blast of fire. The flame slammed against the dreadscale's armor, but only made it glow orange for a moment. The green dragon swooped low, slapping its wings against the ground to send dust into the dreadscale's eyes. The beast growled in irritation and snapped at the green dragon, narrowly missing its tail. The golden dragon fired a powerful burst of light, striking the dreadscale's head. This time the creature staggered, but only for a moment. It roared in fury and swung its tail again, throwing dirt and rock high into the air. Elias realized something. The dragons were powerful individually, but they weren't attacking in a coordinated way. They were reacting, not strategizing. The dreadscale was using its armor to ignore their fire and its strength to shake them off. It needed a weak point. Elias scanned the monster from head to tail. The armor plates overlapped tightly, except near the neck. There was a small gap, barely visible unless watched closely. Every time the dreadscale roared, its throat stretched and exposed a thin segment of flesh beneath the plate. "That's it," Elias whispered. "That's your weak spot." He had to tell the dragon somehow. The sapphire dragon was fighting at the front, using its power to hold the creature back. Elias rushed toward it, dodging falling rocks. The sapphire dragon spotted him and roared sharply, as if telling him to stay back. I know," Elias shouted. "But listen, you have to hit its throat." "That's the only soft part." The dragon blinked, confused. Elias pointed at the dreadscale's neck. "There. When it roars, aim there." The beast let out another thunderous roar, stretching its throat. The sapphire dragon's eyes widened. It understood. It released a blast of blue fire aimed directly at the exposed spot. The flame hit the vulnerable gap. The dreadscale recoiled instantly with a painful bellow. stumbling backward. The other dragons noticed. The crimson dragon swooped in and fired at the same weak spot. The green dragon followed. The golden dragon added a blinding streak of light. The dreadscale shrieked, thrashing wildly. Its tail smashed into the rocks, splintering stone. Its claws scraped the earth in fury. Elias ducked behind a large boulder as the creature whipped around. A chunk of rock flew past his head. The dragonling on his shoulder clung tighter, squeaking in fear. Elias patted it quickly. "Stay low. Stay with me." The sapphire dragon roared again, this time not in warning, but in command. The dragons responded immediately, forming a tight circle around the dreadscale. Cutting off its escape routes, Elias felt the valley tremble with the power of their formation. Fire, light, and wind burst from all directions, slamming into the monster's weak point again and again. The dreadscale stumbled, roared, and shook its massive head in fury, but it was weakening. Its roars became shorter, its steps became slower, its armor plates glowed red from the heat. The gap at its throat stretched wider. The sapphire dragon saw the opening and charged forward with incredible force. It leapt into the air and released a final blast of blue flame directly into the weakened area. The impact was enormous. The dreadscale let out one last shaking roar and collapsed, its massive body shaking the earth as it fell. Dust and smoke rose from its still form. The valley trembled into silence. Elias slowly stood, his legs weak but steady enough. He looked at the dragons. Their wings lowered. Their bodies relaxed. The danger was over. The sapphire dragon stepped toward the fallen beast, nudged it to ensure it would not rise again, then turned to Elias. The dragons began to gather around him once more. This time the air felt different, calmer, warmer, filled with relief. The smallest dragonling slid down his arm and hopped onto the ground, chirping loudly in excitement. Several dragons replied with proud rumbles. Elias looked at the sapphire dragon and smiled. "You did it. You protected your home." The dragon lowered its snout and gently nudged Elias's chest again like before, a sign of honor. But this time, there was something else behind it, a deeper meaning, a bond formed not only from rescue but from battle fought together. Elias felt emotions swell in his chest. He touched the dragon's snout softly. I'm honored." The green dragon approached next, bowing its large head. Then the crimson dragon. Then the golden one. Soon the entire valley of dragons stood around Elias, lowering their heads in recognition. The little dragonling chirped proudly, as if saying, "See, I told you they like you." Elias laughed softly, tears stinging the corners of his eyes. I guess I'm really part of this valley now." The dragons made soft sounds of agreement, surrounding him protectively. Elias felt small among them, but not insignificant. He was one human, but he had proven that human courage could change everything. The sapphire dragon finally unfurled its massive wings and released a long, melodic roar. The sound echoed across the valley, not a cry of fear or loss, but a declaration of hope, unity, and gratitude. All the dragons responded at once, their voices joining in a mighty chorus that filled the sky. The sound was powerful, but beautiful. It felt like the valley itself was singing. Elias looked around, overwhelmed by the moment. The wind carried warm air across his skin. The dragonling hopped onto his shoulder again, chirping with excitement. The dragon's roars slowly softened until they faded into a gentle rumble. Peace returned to Emberdeep Valley. Elias breathed deeply. "I never planned to stay here," he murmured. "But maybe this is where I'm meant to be." The sapphire dragon lowered its head as if saying, "Welcome home." Elias smiled, placing a hand gently on its warm scale. "Then, I'll stay." The dragons roared softly in approval. The dragonlings curled around his feet playfully. The wind tasted like a new beginning. In a valley once feared by all humans, one brave human had changed everything, not by strength, not by fire, but by compassion, courage, and an open heart. And from that day forward, the dragons never mourned alone again.